You're going to be replaying this all day. Modern colleges have become breeding grounds for some of the most extreme progressive ideas we see in society today, from speech policing to outright intolerance. Kind of feels like critical thinking has taken a backseat to ideological conformity. So what happens when a conservative commentator steps out onto one of these campuses and opens up the floor for a Q&A? Well, we get some of the most epic shutdowns you'll ever witness, and today we're covering some of those moments. As always, please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this.
As I understand it, your position is that, it's really expensive, we shouldn't be spending all this money, and it's also none of our business, right? I disagree with that because, one, I think it's morally right, but also, even from a national interest standpoint, right? That money, the Ukrainians have definitely done a lot, but that money has helped them embarrass Russia on a national stage, right? Like before, we believed that they were a big power, and now that they've embarrassed themselves.
So we're spending trillions of dollars to embarrass Russia? That's like a little bit of embarrassment? Is that what we're trying to do? You think that we should be recycling millions of dollars and having millions of dollars disappear into thin air so that we can say, ooh, look, Vladimir Putin is embarrassed. And if by embarrassed, you mean shaking hands with Xi Jinping, talking about how things are going to change and that the next 100 years are not going to look like the last 100 years, then you are not paying attention to what is going on.
This was almost 2 years ago, and what's wild is that the left still hasn't changed its stance on sending endless support to Ukraine. We're talking about billions of dollars poured into this conflict with no clear goal, no endgame, and no serious accountability. Yet somehow their cheerleading continues. Meanwhile, Americans were dealing with inflation, rising costs, and crumbling infrastructure. What's even crazier is how any criticism of this policy is met with outrage, as if questioning where your tax dollars go make you some kind of a traitor. But Candace didn't stop there and pointed to the dangers of pushing Russia into China's lap.
We have just pushed Vladimir Putin into the arms of China, right? One of our the greatest competitor that we possibly have is China. They're shaking hands. They're openly mocking the West. This has never happened before, right? They think the West is a joke, and why shouldn't they? We think that it's cool to have Zelensky make attendances at the Grammys. It's a joke. It's a complete and utter joke. So no, first and foremost, we talked about national interest. National interest require that it was in our nation or it impacted us. It's not my effing business what happens in the Eastern Corridor while we have real Americans that are suffering today. And if you notice, it's been non-stop wars that we haven't lost. You want to talk about embarrassment? Try leaving billions of dollars of technology in Afghanistan after spending decades fighting. That's embarrassment. That's embarrassment.
Yep, and most of our politicians either don't understand or simply don't care about the dangers of a growing alliance between China and Russia. These two countries have been America's top adversaries for decades, so the moment they start working together in a serious strategic way, we have a major problem on our hands. Next, we have a college professor pushing for censorship because of concerns about oppressive speech, and Michael Knowles was not about to have any of it.
You are using your statistics for your own political agenda, and that's your prerogative.
I'm citing statistics because they're true.
I'm talking about the fact that I'm faculty here. I also support a protester in the back.
You think that speech is violence?
No, I think that
that's what that sign says.
The conversation that you're having is oppressive.
So I am oppressing people by what I'm doing. So I am exerting violence on people by my speech. That's what the sign says, and that's what you just said.
It contributes to.
And the protester is saying that's exactly what I'm doing, and she's saying that's exactly what her sign means. So that means that you, a faculty member at an American public university, paid for by taxpayer dollars, are conflating speech with violence.
Yes.
No wonder so many students are walking away from college more confused and sensitive than when they arrived if they had educators like this lady. First of all, it's absolutely ridiculous for a college professor to openly dismiss statistics. That's the foundation of research, data-driven thinking, and logistical analysis. Second, as a faculty member, she should be encouraging the exchange of ideas because colleges are supposed to be about teaching students. You see, developing the ability to ask tough questions and solve real-world problems starts with being exposed to different viewpoints. But that doesn't apply if you're a progressive. In that world, free speech is seen as a threat because their arguments tend to collapse the moment they are challenged.
You said I told a lot of lies tonight. What would be an example of that?
Lies tonight? Well, no, you didn't say lies tonight. You lack rationality. You didn't cite any evidence to talk about the climate change.
I said that the mankind is not going to be wiped out within 20 years because no scientist says. I'm sorry?
Science would disagree.
Which scientist?
the 97% of all scientists who say that 1 to 2 degrees Celsius will melt the ice caps such that there will be rising sea levels, mass extinctions. That is the consensus. And a lot of climate change deniers like yourself, like Ben, like Clavin, they perpetuate that this is all a liberal hoax and that science...
No, I'm not saying it's a liberal. I mean, it's obviously being pushed by politicians primarily. That's why at the United Nations, it's not...
politics. Politicians are going to push political issues.
Right, it's politics, not science. That's my point.
The reaction from this young man is exactly what happens when people are constantly fed the message of doomsdayism. When every headline influencer and institution is shouting that the world is ending, it's no surprise that people start to feel hopeless, and when people feel hopeless, they get angry. By the way, I've noticed you haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel yet, so what are you waiting for? Now, to make things worse, we are all led to believe that there's nothing that we can do about it, and that we're all just waiting for the clock to run out. Next, we have Kristen Hawkins destroying a pro-choice student with simple logic, and the way she leaves her speechless is amazing.
Life begins when you understand living women matter more than potential babies.
What is it?
What do you mean?
If it's a potential baby, what is inside of a woman?
It's a fetus?
Is it living?
No.
How can it grow if it's not living?
Actually, that's like saying if an acorn is a tree.
When does the fetus become living?
That's actually a good question, but that line...
Yeah, of course, because you don't know it, because it's living. It's living.
Imagine being so passionate about something that you've never even taken a moment to consider the basic arguments against your position. It's one thing to care deeply about an issue, but if you've never stopped to ask yourself what are the pros and cons, or what do the other side's points actually look like, then you're just reacting, or even worse, repeating talking points spoon-fed by others.
So when does a child or fetus or clump of cells, whatever you want to call it, when does this clump of cells or fetus become living?
When it can sustain its own life.
But when is that? When is the sustainability?
That's exactly what she just said.
No, when is sustainability?
21?
About like 30 weeks to born, like 24, 30.
Because how do you sustain life? Like my newborns aren't sustainable. You can't just have a newborn and they just live on their own, right?
Right.
This is exactly what I was talking about. This student is clearly out of their depth and visibly looking around for someone to jump in and back her up. But even then, no one could actually counter Kristen's logic. When people are so used to groupthink, even the mildest bit of pushback feels completely overwhelming. And that's what happened here. But I'd love to know which one of these moments was your favorite, so please let me know in the comments down below. And if you want your friends to see these epic shutdowns, please share the video with them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.